Alright, what is up, guys? It is your boy Zach, aka That Bio Dude, coming at you live with the coolest, most informative, and funniest AP biology videos that you will ever find on the interweb. Today we're talking about neurons and nervous systems. I'm rocking the Christmas hat because it's almost Christmas. I'm not really sure how far away it is from Christmas, probably like 200 days or something, but I'm excited for it, so let's get started. Alright, the evolution of the nervous system. The nervous system is vitally important in complex animals, enabling them to seek food and avoid danger. A comparative study of animal nervous systems organization indicated the evolutionary trends that may have led to the nervous system of vertebrates. Invertebrate nervous organization. This is how it works in the different types of invertebrates. Hydras, they have a nerve net that is composed of neurons in contact with one another and with contractile cells in the body wall. Planarians have a nervous system that reflects their bilateral symmetry. They have a ladder-like nervous system with two ventrally located nerve cords that extend from the cerebral ganglia to the posterior end of their body. The two lateral nerve cords allow for a more rapid transfer of information. Earthworms, complex animals, they have true nervous systems. There's a brain and a ventral nerve cord having ganglia on each segment. The brain, which is normally receiving sensory information, also controls the activity of ganglia and assorted nerves so that physical activity is coordinated. And then here's a picture of this. Here's the hydra. There's the nerve. They have a nerve net, which you can see right in here, kind of that net-like structure, like a basketball net. And then in a planarian, a flatworm, the paired nerve cords with transverse nerves have appearance of a ladder. So you can see there, kind of looks like a ladder right there, as if you were like hanging up Christmas lights or something. And then you got the earthworm. An annelid has a central nerve system consisting of a brain, a ventral solid nerve cord. It also has a peripheral nervous system consisting of nerves, and you can see their brain is tiny. It's like right there. It's probably smaller than like this hangnail on my finger, which you can't even see probably. But anyways, it's tiny, but they do have a brain, and they have that nerve cord with the ganglia to support that. Alright, so vertebrate nerve organization. Invertebrates, coupled with bilateral symmetry, result in several types if paired sensory receptors, including eyes, ears, and olfactory structures that allow the animal to gather information from the environment. A vertebrate has a CNS, aka a central nervous system, consisting of a spinal cord and a brain that developed from an embryonic dorsal neural tube. Ascending tracts carry sensory information to the brain, and descending tracts carry motor commands to the neurons and the spinal cords that control the muscles. The vertebrate brain has three categories: the hindbrain, and in there you can find the medulla oblongata, the pons, that controls motor activity, breathing rate, heart rate. Midbrain, which is your reflexes, where you can find the optic lobe. And then in the forebrain, you have homeostasis and communication going on. You can find the cerebrum, the thalamus, and the olfactory bulb, all in there. Alright, nervous system among vertebrates. Right here on the left, you got Krusty Krab, dude, right here. You got the crab. An arthropod is a nervous system that resembles that of annelids, but the ganglia are larger. And the brain, a little bit bigger, getting better. And then you have a squid. A mollusk has a definite brain with well-developed giant nerve fibers that produce rapid muscle contractions so the squid can move quickly. Squids, they're fast people like Squidward. Dude can cruise, right? Okay, you got a little bigger brain, got these giant nerve fibers that run all the way up to the top. And then, of course, a cat, like our vertebrates, have a spinal cord and the central nervous system, kind of similar to humans. They have a very similar brain to us, as you can see right there. And then they have that spinal cord, which is very vital, just like as in humans. Okay, human nervous system has three main functions. It receives sensory input, it performs integration, and it generates motor output. And, of course, we talked before, the brain and the spinal cord are the main parts of the central nervous system. And then the peripheral nervous system has all the nerves. Some important ones are your thoracic nerves, which are in your thoracic category, lumbar nerves, in your lumbar region, your sacral nerves. Then in your, obviously, like your arms, you have radial nerves, median nerves, ulnar nerves. In your legs, you have your sciatic nerve, your tibial nerve, and your common fibular nerve. All very important to leg function, arm function, and then the responses that it gets from your brain to those legs and stuff. Like I talked about before, you have the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. And those are the two main systems, I guess you could say, of the human nervous system. All right, nervous tissue. Although complex, nervous tissue is composed of two principal types of cells: neurons, functional nerve cells, which receive sensory information, and neurologia, which serve as support cells to provide nourishment to the neurons. Neurons consist of three major parts: a cell body, the dendrites, and the axon. The cell body contains a nucleus and organelles. Dendrites are short, branching sensory receptors, kind of look like scary fingers. And then the axon conveys the information, also called nerve fibers, as they can bundle together. The neuroglia vary greatly and have many different structured systems, such as a myelin sheath, the Schwann cells, which help create this myelin, and the oligodendrocyte, which all provide support to the neurons. All right, so here's some different types of neurons. You have motor neurons, sensory neurons, and interneurons. The top picture is a motor neuron. They all kind of have the similar main functions, but they all vary a little bit. Motor neurons take nerve impulses from the central nervous system to muscles or glands, and you can see that you have the dendrites right there, where it's coming into the cell body, and then through the node of Ranvier, the axon terminal, into, like, let's say a bicep muscle or something like that. Sensory neurons take nerve impulses from sense receptors to the central nervous system. So this is working the other way. So you have these sensory receptors going from the skin. Let's say, someone punches you in the arm, you're going to feel that in your skin. Then it's going to take that sensory information, bring it through this way to the cell body, to the axon, and let your central nervous system know, like, hey, you just got punched. That hurt. Ouch. And then interneurons occur entirely within the central nervous system. You have a lot of dendrites, central body, and then it just goes straight to the axon. No messing around with that one. All right, the transmission of these nerve impulses. You have resting versus action potential. Resting potential, when an axon is not conducting an impulse. The inside of the neuron is more negative than the outside. Action potential, the rapid change in polarity across a portion of an axonal membrane as the nerve impulse occurs. Depolarization occurs, which is when the inside of the neuron becomes, positive thanks to sodium ions. All right, so here's a picture of this resting versus action potential of the axonal membrane. On the left here, you're going to get the resting potential. You can see a velometer that records voltage charges indicates the axonal membrane has a resting potential of negative 65 MV. And the permeability to the membrane to the potassium compared to the sodium in the presence of large negative ions within the axon causes the inside to be negative compared to the outside, which you can see all these negative signs, negative, positive signs, positive. Then on the right, you have the action potential. Depolarization occurs in the end. Then the sodium gates open, and you can see that because the inside starts positive, then it becomes negative, outside negative to positive, and then these is going to open these channels, which allows the sodium to come in. While on the right, they're closed, nothing's happening because it's resting potential. And then the resting potential of the axonal membrane again. Talk about the rest of it, the C and the D. The C repolarization occurs when the potassium gates open and potassium moves outside the axon. So this is called repolarization. So that happens when that potassium comes back. And then D, an action potential can be visualized as voltage change a graph over time. It's kind of a graph to show what's happening. So you can see the voltage start at negative 65 when depolarization helped it go all the way up to 40, but then repolarization took it back down as the potassium moved back in, and then you can see it's kind of starting all over again with that resting potential. The threshold being that negative 40. All right, transmission of nerve pulses across a synapse. Every axon branched into many fine endings, each tipped by a small swelling called an axon terminal. Each terminal lies very close to the dendrite of another neuron. This region is called the synapse. There's a small gap between the neurons called a synaptic cleft. Nerve impulses cannot cross this cleft without the help of a neurotransmitter. Some examples of neurotransmitters are acetylcholine, which excites skeletal muscles and inhibits cardiac muscle; norepinephrine, dreaming, waking, and daily mood; dopamine, emotions, learning, attention; and serotonin, which is thermoregulation and perception. And here's a picture of that. So you kind of see here, after an action potential arrives at the axon terminal, calcium enters and synaptic vesicles fuse with the presynaptic membrane. You can see the calcium right here kind of entering the axon terminal. And then 2 neuron transmitters molecules are released and bind to receptors on the postsynaptic membrane. So you can see it's escaping right here, and that binding is occurring. And then the third picture, when an excitatory neurotransmitter binds the receptor, sodium diffuses into the postsynaptic neuron and action potential can begin. And you can see that as the neurotransmitter almost has little arm things right there, and it's grabbing on to that sodium. All right, now getting on to the human brain. The central nervous system consists of the brain and the spinal cord. The spinal cord is a bundle of nervous tissue enclosed in the vertebral column. Its main 2 functions are being the center for reflex actions and providing communication between the brain and the spinal nerves. The brain contains 4 interconnected chambers called ventricles. The 2 lateral ventricles are inside the cerebrum. The 3rd ventricle is surrounded by the diencephalon, and the 4th ventricle lies between the cerebellum and the pons. Cerebral spinal fluid is continuously produced in the ventricles and circulates through them and then flows out of the brain between the meninges. So now I'm just going to talk about the parts of the brain. So you have your cerebrum right here, which is just like the main top function, and then your cerebellum. So this is like the cerebrum area. Cerebellum's down here. And you can see all the ventricles we talked about. The skull is the outside, which protects the brain. Very important. Don't want to be hurting that. So if you're going to go biking, recommend a helmet. And then back to this. Okay, we got the brain stem, which includes the midbrain, the pons, the medulla oblongata. We talked about that earlier. Medulla oblongata is in charge of breathing, heart rate. Here's the meninges right here, which is where the cerebral spinal fluid can exit. Corpus callosum is the inside right here. You're going to have glands like the pineal gland in there, and then hypothalamus and thalamus in there too, aka the diencephalon. We'll go in a little more in depth there, and then, of course, the spinal cord, which completes the central nervous system. All right, the lobes of the cerebral hemisphere. So just focusing on the cerebrum here. Frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and temporal lobe. 4 main lobes. They all have a lot of important functions. They'll start with the frontal lobe. It's the primary motor area, the premotor area, aka the Broca's area. And this is going to control a lot of motor activity, such as moving and stuff like that. The parietal lobe is the primary somosensory area, primary taste area. That's going to work with your tongue and your taste buds. Occipital lobe, primary visual area. That's working with your eyes. And then the temporal lobe is the auditory area and sensory speech area. That's working with your other senses, such as hearing and talking. Other parts of the brain that are important that we kind of touched on, but we're going to go more in depth. Hypothalamus forms the floor of the 3rd ventricle and also maintains homeostasis. You can see that right in there. Thalamus, sides and roof of 3rd ventricle. It receives senses. Those two kind of work together right there in the middle. The pineal gland secretes hormones located in the diencephalon right there. Cerebellum, largest part of the hindbrain, receives sensory input. This is kind of the goofy looking part with all the ridges right in here. Kind of looks like, I don't know, kind of like a leaf almost. I'd say that kind of looks like a leaf. Medulla oblongata, reflex centers for breathing and heart rate, superior to the spinal cord right in here. Fun fact, I don't think I remember about the brain from elementary school is that the medulla oblongata is why alligators are mad. Don't know why, just remembered that. And then the limbic system, complete complex network of tracts and nuclei that incorporates medial portions of the cerebral lobes, the basal nuclei, and the diencephalon. The limbic system blends higher mental functions and primitive emotions as a whole. I think that's it. I don't know what this slide is. I think that's it. That's it for this video. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe. Lecture 8 coming next.